Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Mental Toughness and Body Show. Today we're going to talk about getting started and learning how to master real estate flipping. It's something that I think we should all develop some skills in because it's going to rapidly create our wealth. And often we don't have good money mindsets, and we want to change that. So I also get that some people listening in other countries may be a bit skeptical of our guest because he's based in the US. But what we are going to do is focus on the fundamentals that just cross all borders with Ernie here. So on this podcast, as you know, if you're a long-term listener, we've interviewed people from all walks of life, from your A-list celebrities, billionaires to Olympic gold medalists. And today we have very successful US property flipper, Ernie Smith. Welcome, Ernie.
Rob, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
So, Ernie, maybe we could just share a little bit about what has driven you to get into, the property flipping. You went to college or uni, as we tend to call it over here in Australia. You started out in like architectural design and engineering design and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I, just like me, we didn't share this before the call, but I started as a chartered accountant and doing that type of work to move over to what I do now. So maybe just tell us a little bit about that journey and why you do what you do now.
Sure. Well, again, I appreciate you having me on. So really the story kind of started in college. I was like, just like any other kids, like, I don't really know what I want to do. And, you always have the parental parents, just saying, hey, why don't you try to do this or do that? Well, engineering was always one of those things for me that, in the high school, like the people that I felt like was the most influential for me were like more of like my shop teachers and my art teachers, things that were kind of always thinking outside the box, but yet do anything with processes. And then with my shop teachers, was more of like, how do you create things with your hands? And what do you started out with a plan and then you build onto it from there. And so anyway, I got into school, drafting design engineering, loved it, fell in love with it, fell in love with the design because it was really kind of art and the construction side together. Because when I started in this, we did actual blueprints, so you actually hand drew your
Yeah, wow.
doorways and your windows and the walls, and
Yeah.
so there's a lot of craftsmanship that went into your pen and writing with the pencil and the thicknesses of it. And so I really fell in love with that side of the art because I was able to put two of them together.
So
Well,
does that mean, sorry to interrupt, does that mean you're
no,
more
you're
right brain then than left? Because the engineering says to me left brain, but obviously you're talking about how you love the penmanship and doing all that kind of thing. So where do you put yourself?
I fight with myself a lot. I really feel like I have those little Ernies on both right and left shoulders and I think that's probably really why, like, as the years went on, I went and got my real estate license, my real estate broker license, and my general contractor's license because of the process of it, through all this. And that's kind of where I was going to get to. Um, so after school, I realized that, hey, I didn't want to sit in front of the computer for 8-10 hours a day in these dark rooms, low lit stuff. And it just
Yeah,
wasn't me. It wasn't my personality. I like to be out. I like to be that right brain. But the left side of me still like to draw and like to do, the computer things and see it, be
come to
able
life.
to be constructed, right? So that's where they kind of fought. Is like, so I gave way to my right brain more. so so I tend to lean more towards that side. But that's a creative side. So when I get into doing these houses now, it allows me to go into these places, see what the house existing is in its current state, allows me to vision kind of what the house needs in
Yeah.
order to kind of open it up and breathe life back into it. And then the left brain kicks in and starts like, okay, now we need to do this and this and this and this and this, and go through the process,
Yeah.
designing it, putting it all together, getting the right people in place, the processes, what materials, and it's uh, so it kind of it works with both. I do both sides of it now.
So what do you think drove you to start with? Was it purely money? It's like, do you know what? Obviously you want to love what you're doing, but were you thinking, do you know what? I want the fastest way for wealth creation or
Um, when I started, really, it was like in early 2000, like 2001, 2002. I just moved to Charlotte in 97. I was a restaurateur with a buddy of mine from like 98 to 2003. And so the house, kind of like many, is like, you got to buy your first house, right? And you got to do this. Well, I started house hacking before really house hacking became a household term. I bought one. I lived in it for 2 years. Then for us, it was capital gains free. And then if you did it for a year, then you had short term gains. So it's a little different.
Yeah.
And so that was my mentality because I was working for a W-2 job. And then it was just good for me to like, hey, I'm single. Let's buy a place. Let's renovate it. Let's, do this. Let's sell it, make some money off of it, buy another one, and just kind of keep,
Yeah.
kicking the can down the road. It was good because it helped me do that way. But you're only as good as what the knowledge that you seek is, right? So at that time, we really didn't have a lot of the meetups like we do these days. We don't have the YouTube like we do today. We don't have all these knowledge bites that you can get at your fingertips.
Yeah.
And so you were really limited on to just kind of books or self-learning. And so I kind of went to the self-learning side.
Right. So let's just say, let's go to the most simple. For instance, so you and I spoke. I don't do property flipping myself. I kind of wish that I was introduced to it probably 30 or 40 years ago, and so maybe saw my parents do it, but they actually had a poor money mindset, and so I was never going to learn it off that. So I too had to go through the same process of learning how to create wealth, and I guess I wasn't surrounded with people that invested in property. It was more like stock market and things like that, and like
Mhm.
your own home. If some, well, maybe I could ask you this question. Well, let's say you're trying to convince me to do property flipping. Who should not do property flipping? What's the sort of person that should not do property flipping?
Whew, that's a good question. I don't know if really I can't say that anybody could. I think just you just have to have a want to learn. You
Mm.
have to be able to um, know that you're not the one that's going to be the know-it-all about it, but you got to know enough about it in order so you don't get worked over by the subcontractors and
Yeah.
those that know that you're new, right? I always kind of look at it as taking your car to the mechanic and telling them, hey, it's making some kind of like ticket noise or whatever, but I don't really know it. And
Go
the
through
next
the
thing you know,
whole
you get a
thing, open checkbook. Yeah.
yeah, and then it's like next thing you know, you had a $3,000 bill sitting in your lap, right?
Yeah.
And it was just something small. So I kind of look at it just kind of that way. I think with the right coaching and with the right mentorship and guidance and just knowing the steps of it, anybody can learn it. I mean, I kind of looked at everything. You're human, I'm human. You learned how to do it. I can learn how to do it. So anybody can do any of these things that we do.
Yes. Yes. I apologize for a moment, Ernie. I've just got a
You're
bit
fine.
a live security issue happening. Hold on one moment.
Uh-oh.
I don't know, something weird's happening on my security cameras, but anyway, I think it's moved on. So maybe if we go to the other end, then, so now we're looking at, I'm thinking about, okay, how do we assess a property as to whether it's right for flipping and so forth? And so my chartered accounting left brain kicks in and says, well, okay, not every house you come across that is going to work for you. So I guess it comes down to the numbers, right? And it's not what you
Yep.
sell it for. I guess the profit's in what you buy it for. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. I mean, there's really like three ways that you make money on a project: how you buy it, of course, the money and the materials and labor that goes into it, controlling the cost, and then what you're able to sell it for, right? And so, if you're putting the best foot forward and knowing, hey, it's perceived value, so I want to add things in to the property that's going to improve the value, that's going to show a better quality, higher quality, or just a better flow to the property, then that's going to give them a perceived value of a higher level, right?
Yes.
But then also on the same side, I have to be able to negotiate with the seller for whatever reason that is. Hey, your property, it's, like this particular house we're doing right now. This lady's lived in this house for like 30 years and like deferred maintenance like crazy.
Yeah.
And when we look at it, I'm okay with that, but she has to be okay with the price that I'm going to give
Yeah.
her because of her lack of doing it over the 30 years, right? And so, where they started out at was like a 1.3 million, and we end up buying it at like 995.
Yeah. Well,
So, and again, most people would be like, hey, can I buy it for less? But if you pitch it and you deliver it appropriately, then negotiating on the beginning side is way easier, right? But that's also a skill set that comes along with doing it after a while.
yeah. Yeah.
you know
So going into that, do you have like for any deal, do you say, yeah, look, I've got to make, I mean, only share this number if you want to, but like I've got to make 20%, I've got to make 30%, whatever it is. Do you say that that's your baseline for everything? I need to make that margin, and so therefore it's reverse engineering backwards to say, well, that one hasn't been maintained for 30 years.
Yeah.
I've spent like 75 grand on upgrading it, etc. So therefore, yeah, I got to get it for 300 grand less.
Yes. So you're absolutely right. When you really look at a number, like let's just say it's 100,000, right? And so if I'm taking this particular property to a hard money lender, they're going to say we're at the 70%, and that's with the purchase cost and the renovation cost, and that's 70% of that 100. So that means I'm at 70,000. So it means I have to be buying it for at least $50,000 or less in order to have $20,000 in there for doing renovations, right? Or 30,000 and then 40,000, whatever that makeup is, but it's got to be less than 70%. Now, that can change if you go to a private lender. They may lend up to like 80%, right? So you have a little bit of a buffer, but you also have less money involved in it, and you also have less interest and stuff as well, or
Yes.
and maybe longer time frames. So part of the process is understanding where and who the players are going to be in that particular project. So to answer your question, like on a 20% or 30%, on some of the lower ones, it's hard to do more than really 20% if you're doing like a hundred
Right.
thousand or a $200,000 house. $200,000 house, you're looking at a $40,000 profit. $100,000 house, you're looking at $20,000 profit, right? Well,
Yeah.
what's 20% on $1 million profit on $1 million house?
200.
200, right? So I was in that little mindset before, is like, hey, I'm just going to do these $250,000, $300,000 houses, make my 20% and be happy,
Yeah.
because I'd be working a job. Well, like
Yeah.
this particular house we're doing now, it's going to be worth 1.8 million when we go to sell it. We
Yeah.
bought
Well,
it for 995,
95.
and we'll probably put 200,000 into it.
Yeah.
So we
Wow.
we could end up coming
Right.
out somewhere between around about a 500,000 is kind of what we're looking at for this particular profit on this house we got going.
Yeah. Nice. So over 50 or around 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So,
But how
but
many years has it
because
taken you to get to these types of deals?
network, this one was a
So
relationship. I mean,
how many years in terms of your experience and everything has it taken to get to this?
hmm. I would say, the highest one I've done to date, other than this particular one here, is about 900,000. So for me to jump from essentially a little less of a million to go north of a million was really just kind of my relationships. So the
Right.
people I had in my pocket at that time, that's where they were comfortable at, right?
Right.
And so I look for projects that fit their comfort. Well,
Yeah.
now, like I have people that are 8, 9 figure millionaires,
Yeah.
they're like, hey, just bring us deals, bring us opportunities, do whatever. And so now for them, that's like, if it makes sense, let's do it. And so
Yeah.
this one makes sense. And so sure enough, yeah. Well, and it's kind of also funny. We talked about money side. So this particular couple that I know, they're like, hey, we're an 8 figure millionaire. Um, and I was like, they're like, well, we just pay for the house outright. And I was like, no, no, no. Like, we're going to go use hard money because I want to leverage your money for us to go buy this one property and then turn around to go find 4 more properties to go leverage your, 20% down on. Right.
Yeah.
So if you're going to spend $1 million, I'd rather get 5 properties than go get one.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Clever.
Yeah.
Clever. So how do you go about, I guess everybody knows real estate as, oh, look, there's a sign up there, let me go and negotiate. Your best way, I guess, is finding those off-market deals. What's your process in going about finding those?
Some of it's relationships. Some of those are just knowing, like, your network of people knows who you are, knows what you do, knows that you follow up and follow through. And so that really kind of bodes a lot, because we have a lot of like local communities that we real estate investing communities. And so people know me as like, hey, there's Ernie. Ernie's, he's a phenomenal general contractor. He's a realtor. Like, they know what I do. And
Right,
so they'll bring those opportunities to me. But they also know that the shoe doesn't always fit. And so
right.
I might beat it up a little bit, and they may not make as much money on the profit side for the wholesaling. But like this last deal, for instance, and I kind of go back to it because it's one of the fresher ones.
Yep.
But I found this from a wholesaler out of California, and I'm in North Carolina. And I literally got an email that day, and I was driving back from another investor meeting, and I was like, hey, can I get in to go look at this property? They're like, yeah, when you want to go see it? And I'm like, in 15 minutes. So they called up the seller, and they're like, the seller's like, yeah, I'm here. Great. Swung in, met her, saw the house. Within like 2 days, we had a contract on it,
Yeah.
and it was that fast. But they also had it listed on the MLS, which is our local multiple listing services. So that's where
Okay.
the realtor platform. So they had it listed on there. They had it marketing as well to the wholesale companies, to everywhere, and they had two different prices. On the retail market, it was 1.34, and on the wholesale market, it was 1.15. So
Yeah.
I'm like,
Wow.
you know, so they're fishing, right? And so I'm like, I
Yeah.
know it. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of like, I need to find out how to get them lower than a million.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you mentioned, relationships, they're so important in any business that we're trying to build. What's your best way to do that? Is it belonging to or finding the right, say, real estate groups, etc., to connect with? Obviously, you're going to come across homeowners that may be looking to, partner with you and stuff as well. But
Mhm.
what's your number one tip there?
Um, I mean, for me to be in another room with a bunch of other general contractors is kind of contradictory. Like, I don't need to be in that same room, because that's not the one that's going to be giving me the most value. I can't provide really more value right at that particular point. So
Yeah.
I have to find different segments for me to be able to go in and say, hey, I have these experiences, realtor, the general contractor, the investor. These are how I add value. And this is what I do. And here's my track record. This is why it's a safe, not gamble, but a safe investment, because one, it's a tangible product. And two, I have a proven track record. And three, like, I'm state certified. Like, I got my criminal background check, and I got all these other things done
Yeah.
by the state level. And so there's just, I'm doing things at a higher level of standards than what a lot of people do. And do you have to? No, it just adds to my credibility, which is really kind of in the same side, allows me to be able to be who I am, and charge what I charge for people, and also just know that I can go in there and add value,
Mm.
and give them a good return on their money. And so yeah.
What would you say is a common misconception about the like flipping?
It can go sideways fast, and
Not always a
really,
good story.
yeah. I mean, there's horrific stories. I mean, and I can attest to them too, because I've done a lot of them. But I think for me, like, I desensitized myself enough, because I knew from the design side what went into what I'm taking on. So I wasn't really disgusted by like the rotted wood or whatever, because I can replace it. It can all
Yes.
be replaced. I think really what it is that people have the lack of knowledge, and therefore, when they have the lack of knowledge, and they're bringing the people in that they think are the professionals, they don't question the professionalism out of
Yeah.
it.
Trust them. Yeah.
Um, and then they kind of rely on them to be the professionals. And
Mm.
all these people are doing is chasing the dollars.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, I got this person, I can get them for this amount of money. and then then they usually ask for money up front, and then there's like, hey, I'm going to ask them for 50% and
Yeah.
not 20%. You're right, because you're being new, and a lot of people get stuck because they just don't know, and that's really the biggest issue with all of it is just the lack of knowledge, which again, the YouTubes and everything else that's out there that's free right now, it's like you smack your hand because there's plenty of avenues for you to learn,
Yeah.
what to do and what not to do. And but that's kind of where I still feel like as the coaching side, there's still a lot that people are missing. And
Yes.
and that's where I feel like, I can step in and really help them out.
So at the time, you just
Or both
prompted me
sides.
to have a question there. So at the time of recording this, like just last week, we've had the horrific fires in LA and everything. And so what my brain goes to is just what you said there about, like the builders and stuff asking for 20% or 50%. How do you think that is going to go in terms of like there's so many, like there's thousands of homes. Obviously, those that have the most money
Millions.
and the most
Yeah.
famous are going to get theirs built first and stuff, and that could create a whole bunch of animosity. But do you think like federally they'll be forced to step in to try and like I guess monitor this, or will they just let the market forces go to play and it's going to take years to get back to where it was?
That's a tough animal. Because really you're starting, because of such the fire and the heat. You're dealing with infrastructures of, the surrounding stuff, the water, the sewer, the septics and whatever that they have going on out there, as
Mm.
well as this the roads and the water runoff, and then everything they use to douse the fires with,
I know the
having to deal
salt
with.
water and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of things that are going to have to get sorted out. Some of that I feel like is going to be the federal side. Obviously, a lot of it's going to be the insurance, and we're talking these aren't $300,000-$400,000 houses. These are
Ah,
like, you
20,
know,
30 million or more.
yeah. You got a lot of very high affluential people. Now, granted, they have the insurances,
Yeah.
but when you look at it, it's just a long process. Like, how long did it take them to build it originally?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 years,
And now
and
they want
really,
to
it's like, do you want to be the only house that's up there that's everything else is gone? It's
yeah.
like, and there's a lot of things that's going to come out of that. And we just had something here in North Carolina when we had the hurricane come through, Helena, that hit like a town about 2 hours west of us and wiped out like the town. It's a smaller town, but it wiped it out, like
That's awesome footage.
houses and buildings and
Yeah, yeah.
you name it. And so they're going to be doing the same stuff, but the federal stepped in a little bit, but it's like it's a little, they just, I don't know, like I don't. There's a whole lot of things going on in the federal government right now that you just,
About to change next week, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Just I just got a couple of minutes left before I'll let you go.
yep.
What would you say is the greatest advice you've ever received?
Greatest advice I've ever seen. Years ago, I did one. It was called "Amaze Yourself," and people always kind of looked at it as like, that does, what's that do for you? Well, the guy that was doing the speaking is like, look, you need to amaze yourself. You need to challenge yourself every week to do something that you just always wanted to do, but just never do. Like either you're too skeptical or do whatever. Like you need to amaze yourself, right? Because once you do that, it's the mental side of things, right? The mental toughness. Once you do that, you've just now have given yourself even more encouragement to go do it again, amaze myself again. Well, like I shared before, like I just got up on stage. My largest people of stages that I've been on is maybe 300 or 400 people. Well, the
Right.
one that we were just done
Five,
before,
five
we
times.
just did was like 18, 1900 people, right? So I'm like 5 times the amount, right? 6 times the amount. But and there's no really great preparation for that other than just I'm going to amaze myself. Like I might
Yeah.
get up there and totally foobar it, but at the end of the day, I got up there, I challenged myself, I performed, it's I think that's the kind of the same way for me. It was just amaze myself. Like I learned how to become a general contractor. I learned how to become a realtor. I learned how to become a design person doing engineering and drafting. like I learned all these things. And if I really wanted to learn how to become a bookkeeper and an accountant, I could,
Yeah.
you know, but to
Interesting.
me, that was always kind of the big part.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, this has been amazing. I'm going to get you to, in a second, give us the details how, because you do coaching in this space as well.
Yeah.
And I think what's really important is that people listening to this understand that we haven't spoken specifically anything about, even though I asked you a question about the US, we're talking about principles of success here. And I think what I love hearing from you is, don't just jump into this and expect it to be successful. You've got to get the knowledge, and it's going to take time to build that. And I know that you're like me, where you never stop growing. You're always striving. Like, I'm constantly looking to, how do I amaze myself? How do I move to that next level? Continue to build your relationships and grow your relationships and so forth. So I really want to thank you for today, Ernie. This has been amazing. Tell people how they can get in touch with you and find more about, follow your journey, get in touch with you about your coaching programs.
Absolutely, Rob. Well, again, I appreciate you having me on, and it's been a pleasure. And yeah, I definitely want us to be able to have more conversations in the future. But so yeah, Ernest Smith Official. You can find me across all the social platforms. That's the website as well. If you go on there, you can see credibility. You can see kind of the network of people that I've been surrounding myself around. And these are anywhere from Joe Foster, like founder of Reebok, all the way up to 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs, that are across all sorts of platforms. And, really, it wasn't really until like a couple of years ago that I really put the gas pedal down on all this. So, understanding how to use the social media and how to be able to be influential. So if you just go into Ernest Smith Official, you can kind of see my Instagram. You can see the Facebook. You can see LinkedIn and those ones as well.
I'll put
TikTok.
the link below in the podcast description here, so people can just
Okay.
like one click jump into that and
Yeah.
yeah, learn more about you and get in touch. Thank you so much once again, Ernest. This has been, or Ernie, sorry, this should be this has
You're
been
good. Ernest and Ernie's good.
this is fantastic. Thanks so much.
Rob, I appreciate you.